From the gritty streets of Compton to the grand stages of international acclaim, Kendrick Lamar has proved himself throughout the last decade to be one of the greatest artists of all time. Mostly because of his genius inclusion of deep meaning and messages in his music. And some of these messages have been delivered through his album covers. These covers serve not only as gateways to his albums, but as artistic statements in their own right. Just as his lyrics have resonated deeply with audiences, so too have these iconic album covers become ingrained in the fabric of pop culture, leaving an enduring impression on generations to come.
California. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, hands up, go. She go to work, she go to school. Nobody's smooth, no tattoo.
Born in Compton, California on June 17, 1987, after writing stories as a child, he put lyrics on top of some music about the rough Compton streets he grew up on. His stage name was K-Dot when he first started, releasing a series of popular mixtapes which brought him to attention of hip-hop producer Dr. Dre. These mixtapes were Youngest Head N-Word in Charge, also known as Hub City Threat, Minor of the Year. This was his first mixtape published by Concrete Jungle Music, a vinyl where we see K-Dot's stage name followed by young Kendrick's face on the right side. The other cover features Kendrick standing in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. We have Training Day, his second mixtape, which was published by Top Dog Entertainment. It features a young Kendrick wearing a Freddy Krueger type shirt and a black Washington Nationals baseball cap. There are people behind him and what looks to be a gunshot represented by Broken Crystal. The bottom part states that you will learn about the streets in this mixtape, and the cover seems to pose as imagery for that statement. Another cover features Kendrick with a fur coat. Then he dropped No Sleep Till NYC with J-Rock, also published by Top Dog. The mixtape cover features both of them with text that looks taken out of one of Gucci Mane's weird album covers. We also got C4, which is a close-up of Kendrick's face with the text tattoos on his eyelids that say K-Dot and Fear, obviously paying homage to Lil Wayne's The Carter 3. And lastly, we have Overly Dedicated. This mixtape dropped on September 4th, 2010. The cover art was designed by ASTHTC and features different artists and musicians that have passed away in the background, most of them from drug side effects or overdoses. That's why we see in the title the letters OD highlighted. These artists include Michael Jackson, Pimp C, Old Dirty Bastard, Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, Eric Snow, Dashiell Dash Snow, Robert Johnson, and Bruce Lee. In the middle of the cover, we see something that looks like Baphomet, a symbol usually associated with satanic beliefs, but in actuality is an esoteric symbol of the duality of good and evil, and many other hermetic beliefs I won't cover in this video. We can interpret this as having some connection with the themes of the mixtape, like family, relationships, life, and growing out of being a teen. Having that feeling of not knowing what is right or wrong in many scenarios. Or maybe it's just creepy Hollywood propaganda.
And I pray that all the fear that has ever been in your heart will be taken out.
Probably die in a minute, jump. Just bury me with jump. Jump, 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 jump. Hold up. Hey. Hold up. What? Hold up.
On July 2nd, 2011, Kendrick released Section 80, his first full-length project. Despite being marketed and distributed like a studio album, Kendrick has consistently referred to it as a mixtape. The album tackles a wide range of subjects, including the struggles faced by black people due to the policies of the Reagan administration, such as women's issues, drug abuse, and government conspiracy theories. During a Q&A session at the Soho Apple Store, Kendrick explained that he doesn't aim to preach to listeners. Instead, he presents certain topics and leaves it up to the listeners to decide how to interpret and respond to them. This approach is reflected in the artwork for Section 80, which presents a contrast between what society views as sinful and what it sees as righteous. It features items like a crack pipe, bullets, condoms, and drugs, typically associated with sin and evil. Yet, alongside these items, there's a Bible considered by many to be righteous, positive, and sacred. Kendrick explained that the cover represents the taboos of the world, but he clarified that the juxtaposition serves to depict a person fighting with their humanity while trying to find themselves. The title Section 80 combines Section 8 housing with the decade of Kendrick's birth, the 1980s. Section 8 refers to a section of the Housing Act of 1937, which established a program designed to address the housing needs of those who may struggle to afford decent and safe housing on their own. Despite the controversy, Section 80 quickly rose to the top of the iTunes chart upon its release, and peaked as the second best-selling hip-hop album of that year. Released on October 22nd, 2012 as his first officially claimed album, Kendrick made Good Kid, Mad City as a coming-of-age story of himself as K. Dot. The story of a young teen in Compton battling growth and gang violence as he transitions into Kendrick Lamar. Although the story in the album isn't completely chronological, there is definitely cohesiveness to the entire project. The album features guest appearances from Drake, Dr. Dre, J-Rock, Anna Wise, and MC Eth. There were 2 photographs chosen for 2 editions of the album. The original Good Kid, Mad City album cover showcases Kendrick as a toddler alongside 2 of his uncles and his grandfather. Notably, the eyes of the adults are obscured, which Kendrick suggests may be for privacy purposes. He clarifies that his own eyes are visible because the album's narrative is conveyed through his life experiences. Additionally, above one of the uncles' heads is a poster of Kendrick and his father. The scene in this cover shows a juxtaposition between innocence and immorality. This is displayed with at least 2 things in the album art. Firstly, the beer bottle being so close to the baby bottle, with the beer bottle being seen as impure and the baby bottle being regarded as pure and not associated with evil. Secondly, the relative holding Kendrick is throwing up a Crip sign, which represents immorality, but it's juxtaposed by a young Kendrick, who at this stage in his life is just a child who represents innocence. On the other hand, the deluxe version of the album has a 2001 Chrysler Town & Country van sitting in the driveway of Kendrick's old house. In an interview with the UrbanDaily.com entitled My First Car, he revealed that the van on the front cover was in fact the van talked about throughout the entire album, and that he really did use it to pick up homies such as J-Rock, and dealt with complaints from his parents who actually were in the video for Backseat Freestyle. Before the official announcement of the album's title, fans had already been referring to it as Good Kid, Mad City or Good Kid in the Mad City, inspired by a nickname Kendrick had given himself. When Kendrick finally revealed the title and release date, he specified that the correct rendering of the title is lowercase, except for the 2 vowels in Mad, initially keeping the acronym concealed. Kendrick later disclosed in an interview with LA Leakers that Mad stands for 2 different meanings: My Angry Adolescents Divided and My Angels on Angel Dust. The second one references the drug phenylcyclohexylpiperidine, in other words PCP, colloquially known as angel dust, thus reflecting Kendrick's personal experience with substance abuse. Kendrick explained, "That was me, and it's the reason why I don't smoke. It was just me getting my hands on the wrong thing at the wrong time and being oblivious to it." Furthermore, the album's title had been interpreted by some as a nod to WC and the Mad Circle, a hip-hop group from Los Angeles that was active in the 1990s. In this part, I will also cover Untitled Unmastered, an album of experimental unreleased demos that were made during the creation of To Pimp a Butterfly. The songs in the album were released with the word Untitled and the date of creation. The album cover seems to just be a random solid color, to show that it's not really an album, but a set of unreleased, untitled, and unmastered songs.
A better phrase for it. Until it all falls down. We on. I got a bone to pick. Hold up. I know what you're working about, motherfucker. Sitting in my.
Released on March 15, 2015, To Pimp a Butterfly marked Kendrick Lamar's artistic evolution, solidifying his position as one of the most influential artists on hip-hop. To Pimp a Butterfly is an album that deals with materialism, racism, oppression, and above all else, self-love. Following the success of his previous album, Kendrick had nearly everything he had ever wanted as a young boy. On the other hand, he felt intense guilt. While he was enjoying his newfound influence, his family was still living in poor conditions in Compton. He was torn apart by his mind and heart's conflicting desires. Kendrick explores these emotions and ideas in To Pimp a Butterfly. Kendrick shared the cover art of the album on Instagram. It was captured in monochrome, reminiscent of a vintage Polaroid. The image has a large group of people, primarily shirtless black men and children. Among them, Kendrick holding a baby against the backdrop of the White House lawn. The shirtless black men in the picture aren't just random people, they're Kendrick's childhood friends and family. Their lack of shirts can symbolize a fearless attitude, showing lives untouched by society's rules. The money and alcohol they're holding reminds us of Compton's connections to drugs, gangs, and addiction, which have led to violence and suffering. But despite these tough circumstances, their happy faces show pride and celebration, highlighting the mix of success and struggle in their lives. Seeing them in front of the most powerful building in the world is a big contrast. In the US, where race is a big issue, the White House could also mean it's where white America lives. Only one black president has been in office, while all others have been white. This is a big deal for black people who have always been kept out of political power and tough positions in society. Kendrick stands as the central figure in this artwork, owning both the narrative and the album itself. Holding a baby amidst others clutching money, alcohol, or flashing gang signs, he symbolizes a departure from the cycle of violence and vice. The baby represents the future, embodying the hope and potential of Compton. While others succumb to the allure of street life, Kendrick remains connected to his true self, symbolized by his nurturing gesture towards the infant. The baby holding a bill suggests the early exposure of youth to the harsh reality of gang culture. The children on the right convey a similar message, illustrating how innocence is tainted by societal pressures of success defined by material wealth. In the right front, a small boy victoriously flips the bird. His hand is pixelated, and amusingly, he is positioned directly above the parental advisory label, the warning sign made by Tipper Gore in 1985 at the height of the Reagan-era culture wars. You might spot some women, but they're mostly hidden behind someone else's hand or face. This symbolizes how women in Black America often get overlooked or pushed aside by men. The liveliness of the image reflects the hustle of the street life, fast-paced, unplanned, and noisy. There's no time for perfect poses, everyone's just trying to get the shot. The album title, To Pimp a Butterfly, cleverly references Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, but also serves as a metaphor for exploiting something as beautiful as a butterfly. In this case, it alludes to the exploitation of Black people and culture by the United States. The cover delivers a final blow with the image of a white judge lying on the lawn, with crude black crosses over his eyes, suggesting his recent passing. This judge, resembling Ronald Reagan, may symbolize Judge John Taylor from To Kill a Mockingbird. Taylor, like the judge, represents a good person trapped in a flawed system, unable to save a wrongly accused black man, Tom Robinson. The cross over the judge's eyes also symbolized blindness, reflecting the injustice within the legal system towards Black Americans. At the time of the album's release, this broken system had failed to deliver justice for victims like Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Renisha McBride, John Crawford, and Tamir Rice, among others. On April 11th, 2017, Kendrick showed off the cover art for his album Damn. The designer behind it was Vlad Sepetov, who also created the covers for Kendrick's previous albums, To Pimp a Butterfly and Untitled Unmastered. Vlad wanted to make a Damn cover, loud and abrasive, but not as political as To Pimp a Butterfly. So he used the capitalized Times New Roman text and the red and white color palette to better illustrate that. In a radio interview on June 29th, 2017, Kendrick shared that the album's original title was going to be What Happens on Earth Stays on Earth, but it didn't feel quite right, so he went with Damn instead. He explained that the final title had a lot of different meanings to him, like Damned If I Do, Damned If I Don't, and he thought that it really captured the vibes of songs like DNA and Humble. Billboard thought it was pretty cool, naming it one of the best covers of 2017, and calling it memeable and memorable. The central image on Damn's front cover is of Kendrick himself. Defeat, apathy, and exhaustion are just few of the emotions in his face. It's a look that appropriately represents the feeling of the album's title. Finally, Damn is actually two albums in itself, presenting a different perspective when listened to forwards or backwards. Lamar later released a collector's edition with the reverse track list. This to represent the other perspective of Kendrick's life if Top Dog had actually killed his father.
Somebody pop all day. Somebody on their way. I'm with a crowd all day. Somebody can't relate. Stay down with no faking. Top down, I've been racing. She wild in rotation. My crowd in rotation. Are you opinion?
The soundtrack for the 2018 film Black Panther is a profound reflection of the film's themes and the rich cultural tapestry of Wakanda, blending elements of African heritage with the innovation of the superhero genre. The soundtrack features original songs performed or curated by Kendrick, while complementing Ludwig Göransson's composition. The cover art itself is very simple. The primary focus is the Black Panther necklace, which symbolizes the protagonist T'Challa's role. This necklace, shaped like animal teeth, is not just any accessory, but a significant cultural artifact in the film. In many African cultures, adornments like this signify the wearer's social status, power, and connection to their ancestors. For T'Challa in the movie, the necklace underscores his position as leader of Wakanda. In the context of the album, the necklace serves as a metaphor for the duality of the Black Panther character, royalty and warrior, tradition and innovation. Kendrick, known for his introspective and socially conscious lyrics, bridges the gap between the film's African roots. His music on the album echoes themes of identity, power, and legacy, mirroring T'Challa's journey in the film. The dark background, a accentuates the necklace, making it a focal point and a symbol of strength and mystery. This also reflects the film's visual aesthetic. Just like Wakanda is a blend of traditional African culture and futuristic technology, so is the soundtrack a mix of many musical styles. The songs serve as both an aid to the film and a standalone narrative, helping the listener understand the world of Black Panther.
I pop the pen away, I slide the pen away, I pop the pen away, I slide the pen away. Right about now.
Released on May 2013, 2022, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers dives into Kendrick's life experiences during his therapy journey. Due to its messy but honest lyrical content, it has been regarded as his most confessional work. The album addresses personal themes such as childhood trauma, sexual addiction, infidelity to his partner Alford, and the struggles with celebrity worship and fame. Other topics covered include fatherhood, daddy issues, therapeutic breakthroughs, spiritual consolation, gender identity, accountability, fake news, cancel culture, capitalism, and performative activism. It's a double album featuring 18 songs split into two sections titled Big Steppers and Mr. Morale, each containing 9 tracks. The Big Steppers being the moral corruption of the culture and Mr. Morale being the moral clarity of the conscience. The digital version available on streaming services includes the Hard Part 5. The cover features Kendrick wearing a crown of thorns, symbolizing the crown placed on Jesus Christ to mock him as being a false king. Kendrick uses this imagery to convey that he too is not a king, but an ordinary person with flaws like everyone else. He gazes out the window towards the outside world, looking from his private space into the public. From the outside, someone peering in would see only a fragment of his private reality, Kendrick holding his daughter and wearing the crown of thorns. To this observer, Kendrick would appear as a family man, a savior, Mr. Morale. However, from within this private space, we see Kendrick's reality more fully. His focus on the window and the outside world suggests a distraction from his family. He is not engaged with anyone in the room, and not with his wife or his son, who are blurry in the background, nor with his daughter in his arms who isn't even being stared at. The pregnant woman in the background breastfeeding a kid is Kendrick's fiancée, Whitney Alford, and is in that place to make a separation from Kendrick and his family to the public. His private reality is literally disintegrating, as evidenced by the peeling paint on the walls. The walls could also look like gunshots being patched, maybe a representation of the outside world having shots at his personal life, and these holes being somewhat covered by Kendrick. There are two interpretations I found by the user Useful General 2073 on Reddit regarding the daughter's gaze. She looks directly at the camera with a focused expression. One interpretation is that Kendrick's daughter is looking at us. By looking at us, she brings us into her emotional reality, almost as if to say, well, you keep my father focused on the public, you keep his focus away from me. The second interpretation is that she's looking at a mirror. In this reflection, matching our gazes, she sees the full reality of her family life. Her father's emotional absence, his distance from her mother, and most strikingly, the gun tucked into his pants is a symbol of his fear, paranoia, and the darker aspects of his personal life that he hides from the public and presumably tries to hide from her as well. The weapon could also be interpreted as Kendrick keeping it to protect his family from the outside. I thought I was done with this video. I was about to publish it, but out of nowhere, after the smash hit of Not Like Us, Kendrick drops GNX on November 22nd, 2024. And I'm not gonna lie, it's nice to have Kendrick singing over some West Coast beats. To my surprise, he actually had already teased the album all the way back. He teased it in March 19th, 2024 on his second Insta page, Jojo Ruski, and also while modeling for the woman fashion magazine Harper's Bazaar. We see Kendrick posting with the GNX in the magazine. There's no way we could have known we would be getting this album. It literally was a surprise release. But if we were to look at the history of this car, it would make sense. This album is composed of 12 songs. There are some bangers and some, you know...
Hey, that's my bitch. Hey, with all that fake shit.
But I ain't here to critique music. The album cover features Kendrick leaning on the trunk of a Buick Grand National Experimental, a Buick GNX for short, and that's where we get the title. Surprisingly, the album cover is literally a diss to Drake. I'll explain why in a minute. Kendrick starts the song TV off with the bar,
"All I ever wanted was a black Grand National."
We can see that Kendrick even mentioned this in an interview in 2012 with Complex saying, When I was born, I came home from the hospital in an 87 Buick Regal while my pops was bumping Big Daddy Kane. The Buick Regal was the predecessor to the GNX, which had only 547 units produced in 1987, the year of Kendrick's birth. Furthermore, the GNX continues the symbolism of Not Like Us. It's an insanely rare car that was only produced in the color black, maybe a reference to how not anyone can be black. The second diss comes from the history of the Buick in NASCAR racing. Buick had been on a losing streak for almost 2 decades, but in the 1980s, a rule changed which gave the upper hand to Buick with the Regal design. Buick was the underdog, and yet they proceeded to win in that decade 3 NASCAR championships, achieving 62 wins and 3 Daytona 500 victories. By the time 1982 rolled around, Buick doubled down on the recent NASCAR success and relaunched the Buick Grand National for consumers, which was essentially a showroom Buick Regal with a turbocharged V6 engine. By the time they ran its final iteration in 1987 under the GNX, they had somehow created one of the fastest production cars in the world, beating Enzo Ferrari, the creator of Ferrari, who at the time was known by his competitors as Il Drake. God damn. The same way Buick won all those races could also be an allegory of Kendrick winning this whole year. The album cover could also be a reference to Lil Wayne's The Carter 2 and Jay-Z's Volume 2. Kendrick's album covers are not just pieces of art, they are integral to understanding the full impact of his music. They serve as powerful reminders of the artist's journey, the struggles he faces, and the stories he tells. Kendrick's ability to infuse his cover art with such rich symbolism has cemented his status not only as a musical genius, but as a visual storyteller. Thank you for joining me on this visual journey through Kendrick's album covers. If you made it all the way to the end, I really want to thank you for watching. These videos take a lot of effort to make, and your support is what motivates me to keep doing this type of content. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so more people get to see this video and thus increase the quality and quantity of videos. Let me know in the comments which album cover is your favorite and why. And as always, love all.